All right, welcome back, everyone, to our deep dive into Azure Fundamentals.
Glad to be back.
We're hitting episode 5 already, and things are getting really interesting, right?
Definitely. This is where it starts to get really practical.
Absolutely. Today, we're tackling the why. Why even bother with cloud services in the first place?
Right. Yep.
We're going beyond the buzzwords and getting into the actual benefits you can expect when you start using platforms like Azure.
Because, let's face it, the cloud is everywhere, but it's still a mystery to a lot of people.
It really is, and it can be pretty intimidating to get started.
So today, we're breaking it down, plain and simple, so you can see how it can save you time and money, potentially a lot of money,
Yeah, that's always good.
and make your whole tech setup stronger and more adaptable, which, in today's world, that's huge.
It really is.
Think of this as your crash course on why so many people are moving to the cloud.
Without getting lost in the technical jargon.
That's the goal, right?
Absolutely. So let's dive in. I think one of the first things that comes to mind when people think about the cloud is this idea of high availability.
Yeah, you hear that term a lot, but what does it actually mean?
Exactly. For me, it's about making absolutely sure that whatever you're running, whether it's a website, an app, or anything else, is always there when you need it.
Up and running, 24/7, no matter what.
Right. And Azure, like most cloud platforms, is really built with this in mind from the ground up.
It's kind of baked into the DNA of the cloud.
And it's not just about having servers running somewhere. It's about having specific promises about how much of the time things will be up and running.
That's where those service level agreements, or SLAs, come in.
Right. Those SLAs are like a guarantee from the cloud provider that your stuff will be available a certain percentage of the time.
And those percentages are usually very high, like 99.9% or even higher.
Which is pretty impressive when you think about it.
Yeah, it's a level of uptime that would be incredibly difficult and expensive to achieve with a traditional setup.
So it's not just about keeping downtime to a minimum. It's about minimizing it, even when unexpected things happen.
Like a power outage, a hardware failure, even natural disasters.
It's like having a whole backup system ready to go at a moment's notice.
Exactly. And that can be a lifesaver for businesses, especially those that rely heavily on online services.
Imagine an e-commerce site during a big sale and suddenly their website goes down.
That's a nightmare scenario.
It really is. But if they're using the cloud and have that high availability built in, they can avoid losing a ton of potential sales.
And avoid a lot of stress and headaches, too.
Absolutely. But high availability in the cloud is more than just reacting to problems.
Yeah, it's about designing systems that are resilient from the start.
So they're less likely to have problems in the first place.
Exactly. Azure, for example, has this really interesting approach with what they call availability zones.
So what are those?
Well, within a specific geographical area called a region, Azure has these multiple isolated data centers.
Oh, so it's not just one big data center in a region.
Right, it's multiple separate ones, and these are the availability zones.
Okay, and the idea is that if something happens to one zone, like a power outage or something, the other zones can take over seamlessly.
That's the idea. It's like having multiple backup power supplies for your critical systems, but on a much larger scale.
That's pretty amazing when you think about it.
Yeah, it really shows how the cloud is designed for resilience, right from the ground up.
Now, along with high availability, the other big advantage of the cloud that always gets talked about is scalability.
Oh yeah, that's the magic word, right?
This feels like it, and I think it's one of those things that makes the cloud so appealing to so many people.
Especially businesses that are growing quickly or that have unpredictable demands.
Yeah, the ability to adapt to changing needs, whatever those needs might be.
That's what makes the cloud so powerful.
So let's break this down a bit. Imagine you have a really popular app, and suddenly it goes viral.
So you have this huge influx of new users all trying to use your app at the same time.
That could easily overwhelm a traditional system, right?
Absolutely. You might see slowdowns, crashes, all sorts of problems.
But with the cloud, you can just add more computing power almost instantly to handle that extra load.
Like flipping a switch.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And what's even better from a business perspective is that you only pay for that extra capacity while you're actually using it.
That's the beauty of the cloud's pay-as-you-go model.
It's a complete game changer compared to the old way of doing things where you had to buy all this extra hardware just in case you needed it.
And most of the time, that hardware would just sit there, idle, costing you money.
So the cloud really does make it much more cost-effective to scale your resources up or down as needed.
And there are two main ways that this scaling can happen: vertical and horizontal.
Okay, so what's the difference?
Well, vertical scaling is like giving your existing computer a power boost.
Like adding more RAM or a faster processor.
Exactly. You're staying with the same basic resource, but you're making it more powerful.
It's like upgrading the engine in your car for a race and then going back to a more fuel-efficient one for everyday driving.
That's a great analogy. Now, horizontal scaling is a bit different.
Okay, so what's that like?
Think of it like adding or removing entire computers.
So instead of just upgrading one computer, you're adding more computers to the mix.
That's right. It's like adding more checkout lanes at a grocery store during rush hour to handle the extra customers.
And then when things calm down, you can just take those extra lanes away.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is that this horizontal scaling can often happen automatically in the cloud.
Oh, wow. So you can set it up so that when demand increases, the system automatically adds more resources, and then when demand goes down, it removes those resources.
That's right. It's like having a self-adjusting system that always makes sure you have just the right amount of computing power.
That takes a lot of the guesswork out of it, and I bet it helps to avoid a lot of potential problems.
Absolutely. It's one of the things that makes the cloud so much more efficient and reliable than traditional approaches.
Oh. Now, having systems that are always available and able to handle any amount of traffic is fantastic, but what happens when things actually go wrong?
Yeah, because things do go wrong, even in the cloud.
That's where reliability comes in.
Right, exactly. And reliability in the cloud is all about building systems that can bounce back from failures quickly and gracefully.
So it's not just about staying online, it's about having the ability to recover from problems and keep running smoothly.
That's a key part of the Microsoft Azure well-architected framework.
And the way the cloud is designed, with resources spread out across multiple geographical regions, really helps with this, right?
It's all about redundancy. If one area experiences a problem, like a natural disaster or a power outage, the other regions can step in and keep things going.
So it's like having a backup generator for your whole system.
But even better, because it's not just one backup. It's multiple backups spread across different locations.
And some systems can even automatically shift operations to healthy regions without any human intervention.
Yeah, that's the power of automation in the cloud.
It's like having a self-healing system that can adapt to almost any situation.
It's pretty impressive. And it gives you a level of peace of mind that's hard to get with traditional infrastructure.
Now, along with reliability, there's another aspect that's closely tied to it. Predictability.
And predictability is really about having confidence in two main things: performance and cost.
Yeah, that makes sense. You want to know how well your systems will perform and how much they're going to cost.
Exactly. And this is another area where the cloud really shines, especially Azure, with its emphasis on the well-architected framework.
So let's start with performance predictability. What does that mean in the context of the cloud?
It means you can rely on having the computing resources you need when you need them to make sure your users have a smooth and positive experience.
So no more worrying about your website crashing during a big product launch or your app slowing down when everyone's trying to use it at the same time.
Ideally, yes. And a big part of achieving this is through the use of features like auto-scaling, which we talked about earlier, and something called load balancing.
Okay, so load balancing is about distributing traffic across multiple resources, kind of like traffic cops directing cars across multiple lanes on a highway to avoid congestion.
That's a great analogy. And when you combine these features with high availability, you get a system that can dynamically adjust to changes in demand and maintain optimal performance even under pressure.
That's pretty powerful stuff. And then there's cost predictability, which is something that everyone, especially businesses, can appreciate.
Absolutely. Nobody likes surprises when it comes to bills, especially big ones.
And Azure provides a lot of tools to help with this, right?
Yeah, you have things like real-time monitoring, detailed data analysis, and even helpful calculators like the total cost of ownership, TCO calculator, and the pricing calculator.
So you can actually see how much you're spending on different resources, predict your future costs, and make informed decisions about your cloud deployments.
And all of this is available right at your fingertips through the Azure portal or other management tools.
That's a huge step forward compared to the often unpredictable and opaque costs of traditional IT infrastructure.
It really gives you a level of control and transparency that was previously unheard of.
Okay, now let's shift gears a bit and talk about another really important aspect of cloud computing: security and governance.
This is a big one, and it's often a top concern for organizations that are considering moving to the cloud.
I can imagine. You're entrusting your data and applications to a third-party provider, so you want to make sure everything is secure.
And compliant with all the relevant regulations, too.
Right. But the good news is that Azure and other cloud platforms come with built-in features and tools to help you manage security and governance effectively.
And one of the key concepts here is The use of templates.
So what are those exactly?
Templates are like pre-approved blueprints that you can use to set up new resources in your cloud environment.
So instead of having to configure everything manually every time, you can just use a template that's already been set up to meet your specific requirements.
That's right. And these templates can be customized to enforce your organization's security policies and any relevant industry regulations.
So it's like having a built-in set of guardrails that ensure everything is set up correctly from the start.
Exactly. And if your policies or regulations change, you can easily update the templates, and those changes will be applied to all new resources that are created using those templates.
That makes a lot of sense. It takes a lot of the guesswork and manual effort out of maintaining security and compliance.
And it helps to prevent costly mistakes down the road.
Now, along with templates, there are also cloud-based auditing tools that can help with security and governance, right?
Yeah, these tools can continuously scan your Azure environment, looking for any resources that aren't compliant with your policies.
So it's like having an automated quality control system that's always running in the background.
Exactly. And if any issues are found, these tools can alert you and even suggest ways to fix them.
That's pretty amazing. It's like having a team of security experts constantly monitoring your environment.
And another great thing about the cloud, especially with platforms like Azure, is that software updates and security patches are often applied automatically.
Oh, that's a huge time saver, and it helps to ensure that your systems are always up to date and protected.
Especially with PaaS and SaaS, where the cloud provider takes on more of the responsibility for managing the underlying infrastructure.
Right, so with those types of services, you don't have to worry about patching servers and installing updates yourself.
The cloud provider takes care of all of that for you, which frees you up to focus on your applications and your data.
Now, when it comes to security itself, the cloud offers a layered approach that you can tailor to your specific needs.
It's not a one-size-fits-all solution.
And the level of control you have over security depends on the type of cloud service you're using, right?
Yeah, with IaaS, for example, you have a lot of control over the underlying infrastructure.
So you're responsible for managing things like the operating systems, firewalls, and other security measures on your virtual machines.
But with PaaS and SaaS, the provider takes on more of that responsibility.
So there's a trade-off between control and convenience.
Exactly. But no matter which type of service you choose, it's important to remember that security in the cloud is a shared responsibility.
So it's not just about what the cloud provider does, it's also about what you do to secure your applications and your data.
And that's where good governance practices come in.
Right. It's about having clear policies and procedures in place to make sure everything is secure and compliant.
And regularly reviewing and updating those policies to keep up with the evolving threat landscape.
So let's talk about manageability. It seems like this is another big advantage of using the cloud.
Yeah, and there are two main aspects to manageability in the cloud. Management of the cloud and management in the cloud.
Okay, so what's the difference?
Well, management of the cloud refers to the capabilities that the cloud platform provides for managing your resources.
So things like auto-scaling, templates, monitoring, and alerts.
Exactly. It's all about using automation and built-in tools to simplify and streamline your operations.
It's like having a self-managing system that takes care of a lot of the day-to-day tasks for you.
Which frees you up to focus on more strategic initiatives.
And then there's management in the cloud, which is about the tools you use to interact with and manage your cloud environment.
So things like the Azure portal, command line interfaces, APIs, and PowerShell.
It sounds like there's a lot of flexibility in how you can manage your Azure resources.
Yeah, you can choose the tools and methods that work best for you and your team.
So whether you prefer a visual interface, command line tools, or scripting, Azure has you covered.
It's all about giving you the options you need to manage your cloud environment effectively and efficiently.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground today.
We really have.
We've talked about the core benefits of using cloud services, specifically within the context of Azure Fundamentals.
And we've seen how these benefits can translate into real-world advantages for businesses and individuals alike.
We've talked about high availability, scalability, reliability, predictability, security, governance, and manageability.
It's a lot to take in, but hopefully it's given you a better understanding of why the cloud is so compelling.
And maybe even sparks some ideas about how you can use the cloud to achieve your own goals.
Absolutely. The cloud is a powerful tool, and the possibilities are really endless.
For more detailed information and resources on all things Azure, be sure to visit learnazureforfree.com.
It's a great resource for anyone who wants to learn more about the cloud and how to use it.
All right, that wraps up another deep dive into Azure Fundamentals.
Until next time.
See you then.